There you go. And we take the prayer together. And here we go. Master of all worlds, highest power, merciful parent of compassion, in your presence, eternal one, source of strength for us, as you have been for our ancestors, we very humbly acknowledge you. What are we? What is our life that you have done such great kindness to us? Therefore, we place our appeals before you, so that you may forgive and absolve us of all our faults and failings. Let our faults never become barriers between us and you. And may it be your desire to prepare our hearts to feel awe and love for you. May you listen to these words of ours. And may you open our encumbered hearts through the mysteries of your Torah. May this, our study, be a source of pleasure before your throne of glory, like sweet incense. May you shower down upon us the light of our soul source in all the ways in which we define ourselves. May the sparks of your holy servants, through whom you have revealed these words to the world, shine and sparkle. May their merit, their ancestors' merit, and the merit of their Torah, their innocence, and their holiness stand for us so as to prevent us from stumbling when we study these words. In their merit, may our eyes be illumined by what we study, as in the saying of the sweet singer of Israel, open my eyes, that I may gaze into wonders of your Torah. May the words of my mouth and the thoughts of my heart be acceptable to you, my rock and my redeemer. For it is the Eternal who grants wisdom. It is from his mouth that knowledge and understanding issue forth. Na 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 na. Ah na na na. Na 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 na. Ah na na na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na na na. Na 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 na. Ah na na na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Ah na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Ah na na na. na 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 na. Oh na na na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. Na 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 na. So here we are, and we're on page 295. All right, whatever. However it works, that's how it works. We're on page 295, and the verse that we have in the indentation on the page is that we're going now into the very moment and the very text that we have of Isaac blessing Jacob, and then what happens after that. So this is the blessing that becomes also part of the traditional liturgy, where this is verse 28 in chapter 27. V'yitein lecha ha'elokim mital hashamayim mimishmanei haaretz berov dagan v'tirosh. So maybe we should have, does somebody have the full text, full biblical text? And we can read verses 28 and 29. Those are the two verses of Isaac's blessing. Somebody have that at hand?
Yeah. Okay, it says, may God give you of the dew of heaven and the fat of the earth, abundance of new grain and wine. Let peoples serve you and nations bow to you. Be master over your brothers, and let your mother's sons bow to you. Cursed be they who curse you, blessed they who bless you.
Good. That's and then it says, and then Isaac concluded the blessing. Of course, the very end of that blessing is an echo of what we have in this Shabbos Torah reading, where the blessing is first introduced. The notion of blessing that has been the contentious issue here about passing it down, it begins with Lech Lecha. It begins with God saying to Abraham, get moving, start journeying. This is chapter 12 of Breshit, of Genesis, and the words there are right. So verse 2, first it says, get moving, leave your homeland, etc., to the place that I will show you, the land I will show you. Verse 2, yes, I will bless you, I will make your name great, be a blessing, I will bless those who bless you, and I will curse those who curse you. And all the families of the earth will be blessed through you. So here is a paraphrase, and of course, we have a very clear material, physical, natural bestowal of blessing from the earth itself and all of nature. But at the end it says, and then you'll be a successful people, and you will be served by others, and you'll be blessed, and you can't be cursed. So that's the continuation of the blessing passed on from Abraham to Isaac, and now from Isaac to Jacob. Okay, so now the Zohar starts talking about this blessing, which of course, as we know, has been received through surprising dramatic shifts. Rabbi Abba, who's going to read for us? Okay, Beryl, what a surprise.
Rabbi Abba said, this verse has been established. He opened saying, a song of ascents. In my distress, I cried to Yud-He Vav-He, and he answered me. How many songs and praises did King David chant before the Blessed Holy One, all for the purpose of arraying his wrong and making himself a name, as is said. David made a name. He sang his song when he saw his incident of Jacob. When he saw this incident of Jacob.
So what we have here is that Rabbi Abba says, look, you can look it up in the Midrash. The Midrash discusses this, but I want to do my own Midrash. And he begins with Psalm 120. So Psalm 120 is the first of the 15 Psalms of Ascent, Shir HaMalot, the first of the 15 of these. And it's found in our Siddur for Shabbat Mincha. And it reads as follows. This is from the translation found in the Sim Shalom Shabbat Siddur, Song of Ascent, right? El Hashem betzarata li karati vayaneni. To the Eternal in my anguish, I called, and God answered. Save me, Eternal, from lying lips, misfat sheker. Save me from a treacherous tongue, milashon remiyah. What will it benefit you? What will you gain, treacherous tongue? A warrior's sharp arrows and red-hot coals. Alas, that I dwell with the ruthless, that I live among the lawless. Too long have I lived among those who hate peace. I am for peace, but whenever I speak, they are for war. So it's a very striking verse. I want to point out that the third verse, which is translated here, what will it benefit you? What will you gain, treacherous tongue? In the Hebrew, it's ma yitein lecha, u'ma yosif lach lashon remiyah. What? So the literal translation is, what will it give you? And of course, here, what's the beginning of this blessing that Isaac gives to Jacob? Right? May God give you. This is what should be given to you. But a lashon remiyah, you're not going to get anything. Right? What will it benefit? You won't get anything. What do you think you're going to get from a treacherous tongue, from lying lips? So of course, and the Zohar will recognize this, this is exactly what we're worried about here. Right? This is exactly the problem. Isn't Yaakov guilty of lying, deceptive speech and betrayal and treachery? So the psalm is a poignant psalm for this question. And now what we have Rabbi Abba saying is something that it's a psalm, and unless we know otherwise, we assume traditionally that King David composed the psalm. So King David composed the psalm, but says Rabbi Abba that he sang this song when he saw this incident of Jacob. What do you think that means? I don't think this is super esoteric. What could we possibly think of saying King David composed this psalm? Let's take it, just a paraphrasing, in connection with Jacob. Right? So when he saw this incident of Jacob, when did he see it? When he learned Torah. He saw it when he learned the Parsha. He saw it when he opened up the Chumash and he read, Parshat Toldot. That's when he saw it. So this is, an image that that is conjured up for King David when he learns what the Torah tells us. It's also an image that the Zohar conjures up for us about what can happen when you learn Torah. Right? This is not an outrageous possibility that you can be inspired by getting into a text of the Torah to create midrash, song, poetry, some kind of essay, right? So we can take this on a very simple level, right? That King David reads over the story of Jacob. He really gets into it. He relates to it, very intensely, and this is his cri de coeur, right? He's crying out from his heart, oy vey. This is the issue here. The issue is all about deception. Now, of course, the Zohar is going to defend Jacob, so we're going to see how we turn it around. But the issue is clear. Everybody, any reader of the Torah, reads this story and brings up the question of deception. Jacob brought up the question of deception right in the story, so it's right there, on the surface. And it turns out to become a song of ascent. Song of ascent. Before we get to that punchline at the end of that paragraph, we have a description. Okay. Welcome back. Hope this time it stays. We have a description of David, and what is he doing when he sings these songs? What is he doing when he creates these psalms? Is it just that he happens to be a very emotional, emotive, creative person? What does the Zohar say he's doing? So that's in the middle there. How many songs and praises did King David chant before the Blessed Holy One? All for the purpose of arraying his rung. Right? The goal that King David has in singing these songs is to set forth properly, fully his rung. So we know this phrase, his rung. We've had it in many places applied to Abraham and to Isaac and to Jacob. The rung is another word for the sphira. And each of these biblical figures is identified with one of the sphirot, with one of the divine manifestations. So the three patriarchs are a merkava for God. They are the glorious chariot of God's presence. And we already have talked many times about what each one is, or who each one is. And King David is also, he's added to the patriarchs, right? With that skip of time that took so long until finally God's personality, God's being finally gets complete human embodiment. And King David embodies who? If you want to cheat, you can look in the notes. Malchut, Shechina, right? So King David is Shechina. Abraham is Chesed. Yitzchak is Gvura, Din, Pachat, and Yaakov is Tiferet, and so many other things. But it's not important to so much to just go into that kind of like labeling. However, it is for David a little bit interesting, right? Because David is identified completely. David is Shechina, right? Malchut. because Shekhinah and Malchut are also co-existent, co-extensive, right? They are the same manifestation of God, which is not necessarily so obvious and the way we would intuitively do things. We relate to Shekhinah, of course. We in the Zohar group, we're much more sophisticated than most other people because we've learned so much. But when you think about Shekhinah, we think about the feminine, we think about soft, we think about caring, we think about loving, and that's the way in contemporary thinking Shekhinah is appealed to again and again and again. Of course, for the Zohar, as we know, it's much more complicated than that, much richer than that. When we say Malchut instead of Shekhinah, and then we say Shekhinah and Malchut are the same one, the same part of God. In what sense are we then applying that term Malchut?
Sense of God being in the world, God running the world, Malchut. So the way David runs his kingdom, so God is right there running the world.
Right. So other people, does that jibe for us with Shekhinah, with our associations of Shekhinah?
No,
So speak more.
I don't see Shekhinah as taking a that kind of an active role, but more, I mean, the whole notion of the moon and the reflection. So kind of sitting back or, yeah, I don't see the active piece. I actually raised my hand to ask a different question, but I had to comment on that.
Okay, what's your other question? We'll see if we can deal with it now or we have to put it off.
Okay, well, when we say he sang this song, and the word sang keeps resonating, and I keep thinking there's a reason that sang, and I'm wondering, is there some, when he saw this incident, so is there some notion that in some way David, because of his spherotic connection, is able to, I don't know, be almost present at that moment?
Yeah, to a certain extent, yes. The moment becomes very real for him. Yes, absolutely.
Okay, because
David is David is identified here as Malchut and as Shekhinah. He's no longer simply, the flesh and blood guy that lived for 70 years, approximately 1000 BCE, et cetera, et cetera. David is then somebody, he's that, he is that person, but he is also above time. Yeah, he's privy to every to every scene of the Torah.
as it's unfolding.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So, and maybe that helps us a little bit actually back to this question of this juggling back and forth between thinking of Shekhinah as a more quiet, gentle, presence, and then saying Malchut. Anybody else want to add to this? How do we connect dots like that, or how do we sew them together? How do we unify them? Any other kind of imagery we can put in here? Let's think of another image that we have for Shekhinah, mother. Okay, let's think about the mother, and let's think about the mother in relation to those other two terms that we threw out for Shekhinah: presence and authority, rulership. How does that sort of help us a little bit? It helps me, right? So the presence of the mother, the hovering, caring presence of the mother, is some part of our stereotype for the mother, the typical or mythical image of the mother, right? But the mother is also in The father is never around, is he? The mother is de facto the boss 99.9% of the time. And the mother, successfully or unsuccessfully, tells you what to do, gets you to do what you're supposed to do, gets you going to where you're supposed to go, and makes very important and hard decisions, not necessarily to the delight of her children, but that's part of her job, right? And it is out of love, and it is out of a sense of caring and commitment. So the fact that the good mother is seeing everything, right? The Eshet Chayil song, she's taking care of everything. Everybody in the house is all okay, thanks to this capable, amazing woman who's got a lot of power. Eshet Chayil, she's got a lot of energy and strength to take care of stuff, and that is the might that is ascribed to her, and in the ultimate sense, in old-fashioned terms, that's what it means to be the ruler. That's Malchut.
Oh.
That's the sovereignty. She's the boss. To the extent that we take those two terms and we meld them together a little bit, Malchut is also, and this can be both comforting and it can be terrifying, Malchut then actually becomes that Shekhinah aspect of presence. Malchut is the presence you can't avoid. Malchut is the all-seeing, all-powerful, ever-present presence, right? And in scary terms, if you think of images even from the movies, but not just from the movies, from the newspapers, from whatever, Big Brother is watching you. In authoritarian regimes, you can't go 2 feet without another oversized, gigantic image of the ruler watching out over the public sphere and penetrating into the private sphere. So, seeing everything, seeing it all. If you convince yourself that ruler really cares for you and is benevolent, a benevolent despot, or the one that the papa, it's not the mama because it's usually a papa, but that's the idea again, where the parental and the sovereign presence is meshed together. When we say in our prayers again and again and again that we want your kingship to be established in the world, that's part of what we say. Aleinu is that Malchut prayer that we say at the end of our services. We want everyone to know that God is God. If you know that God is God, that's God's Malchut. To actually know that God really is God is to accept Ol Malchut Shamayim. It's not that God can tell you what to do. It's that God is. That God is real. And that means that God is right here. So and therefore that God is inescapable. So Malchut has many, many aspects to it. And in the sense that God's presence in the world is meaningful, is actually makes a difference. It's because that is God's ultimate power to be there. So David is simply for us, is a pale reflection of that kind of Malchut. Except in one sense, David is also a very apt very appropriate representation of that kind of malchut. And we've acknowledged many other times what a problematic figure David is. David is not exactly the purest, the most righteous person in his career. But that's not what I'm talking about. What I'm talking about is that David has his ups and downs, but in the tradition, David's malchut is guaranteed as eternal. Right? Saul had malchut, but Saul lost his malchut. Right? Other pretenders, the whole kingdom, the whole kingly chain in the northern kingdom, they were all kings who, in the end, lost their royal sovereign standing. David, even though he was a sinner and even though he messed up in many ways, nevertheless, and even though his line was upended, so to speak, both internally by the splitting of the two kingdoms and also then by the destruction of Israel by Babylonia and by Rome, nevertheless, for the tradition, David's kingship will never end. Right? David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam. Right? That common song that people know comes from the Gemara that says that when we were establishing when the new moon happened, we had to do that with with accepting eyewitness accounts, and then we had to spread the word. So it wasn't with a printed calendar. It wasn't the way we have it today, that everybody just has it if they want. They can find out any Jewish date anytime. In those days, in ancient times, people needed this is second temple and post second temple for hundreds of years. People had to be able to find out what the decision was of the sages and the Sanhedrin, the court that was deciding whether it was the new month was today or tomorrow or yesterday. So when that system of bonfires and signaling and so on and messengers, when it worked, when they would say, David Melech Yisrael Chai v'Kayam, David, the king of Israel, is alive and enduring. Because that was the idea. The idea was we're still here. We're still here. The Jewish people is still here. Our ruling over ourselves and over our own sense of time is enduring. And that's David. That's the Malchut. And if we can't have a political sovereignty right now, we will eventually. And of course, that's the messianic dream. And who is the Messiah? Mashiach ben David, right? The Messiah is the son of David. So David's eternity as sovereign, as Melech, is also participating in the idea that the Shekhinah, even if she disappears, even if she's in exile, even if she seems to have been defeated, she's never finally defeated. She's never totally defeated. She always will be able to emerge again. And of course, that's for the Zohar, that's the job of every Jew all the time, is to restore Shekhinah to her proper place. So David was doing this by singing those songs. And here David was prompted to sing this song because of this moment of danger and this very, very tense moment of would the blessing continue or not. Okay, Rabbi Elazar.
Rabbi Elazar, Jacob sang this song for when his father said, "Come near, so I can feel you, my son. Are you really my son Esav?" Jacob felt deeply distressed, fearing that his father would discover him and he would be recognized. What is written? He did not recognize him because his hands were hairy like the hands of his brother Esav. Then he said, in my distress, I cried to Yud-He Vav-He, and he answered me.
So that's the first verse of Psalm 120, right? So what's Rabbi Elazar's take on this? What does he say that's different than Rabbi Abba? He says the author of the psalm is not King David. The author of the psalm is Jacob himself. So he's saying that this psalm was actually composed in the moment. Now, of course, for Rabbi Abba, his starting point is King David, composed the psalm. Therefore, we place King David into the scene with Jacob. He's watching. There was a show that I think, unfortunately, most of us may still actually remember that it existed. You Are There. Some people remember that was a show, so which was a brilliant show. I mean, it was. I remember it from when I was a little kid. I thought it was very impressive. I mean, I have a couple of moments that still I can picture in my mind. I'm still there. So Rabbi Abba puts David there. Rabbi Elazar says we don't have to do it that way. This is Jacob was there. Jacob was there, and the psalm that we have that was then codified, canonized by being incorporated in the book of Psalms, that psalm is Jacob's own heartfelt anguish and panic being put into words, right? So it's Jacob himself who sang the song when? Precisely at the moment when Isaac says, come over here. I want to see who you really are. I want to see who you really are. And Jacob is trembling, and he doesn't know what's going to happen. And then he says this psalm. So in a certain sense, we have playing with time here in both of these interpretations. For Rabbi Abba, we have a leap in time, right? David in his imagination or in the time warp, however you want to look at it, David goes in there and then is inspired to sing this song. But he's singing it from the outside, right? He's singing it as an onlooker, as an observer. And he's singing it from the point of view of Shekhinah, right? Now, Rabbi Elazar says, no. This is Yaakov who's singing it, and he's singing it from his perspective. And Yaakov is not Shekhinah. And Yaakov here is not God, right? Is not Tiferet. Yaakov is Yaakov. And he is singing it, but then we have this a little bit of a very, very, I think very interesting moment, because it's a stretching of the moment. It takes a while to sing this, to say this psalm. Jacob said this psalm exactly after his father calls him over and says, come here, I wanna see if you're really who I think you are. So can you imagine if at that point Yaakov has to say, 1 second, I have to say Psalm 120, right? Give me a minute and a half, and then I'll walk over. Of course, obviously that's not what he says, but that's what he does according to this scenario. So what you have here is you have this stopping of time, and Isaac is waiting, and Jacob in his fear and distress is, so to speak, reciting all these verses of appeal to God in every single, direction. And of course, I'm saying this, in a kind of a hyper literal way, the whole thing takes a nanosecond, because all of these concerns and all of the elements of this prayer, when he actually offers the prayer, it takes it's all simultaneous. It's all happening all at the same time. But he's praying to God, help me out here. And oh my God, save me from Lashon Remiyah, right? From Sifsei Sheker. So, okay. Now, what the Zohar will do is Zohar will clean up the psalm so that the psalm does not reflect at all badly on Yaakov. Go ahead.
O Yud Hey Vav Hey, deliver my soul from lying lips, the rung inhabited by Esav, who is lying lips. To what does this refer? To the time when that serpent inflicted curses upon the world, cunningly, deceitfully, so the world was cursed.
Okay. So if you look at 268.
To the time when that serpent inflicted curses upon the world, when the serpent deceived Eve, claiming falsely that God had forbidden them to eat of any tree in the garden and assuring her that if they did eat from the tree of knowledge, they would not die and would be like God.
Okay, so this was last week's Torah reading, and we've had it many times since. So the Nachash, the serpent, is the lying serpent, and the lying lips and the treacherous tongue is the serpent himself. And of course, what is the serpent's punishment? That his tongue will lick dirt, right? Will lick the dust. That tongue that spoke falsely, that spoke deceptively, and misled the first humans, will pay the price. So that's the serpent. The serpent is the very epitome of evil speech and lying speech. And Esav is the Gilgul, right? Esav is the development later on in time of the serpent. Esav is the evil one, right? Esav participates in the Sitra Achra, right? He represents a force from that side. So when Isaac is summoning Jacob, and Jacob is worried, Jacob is praying not, oh my God, I've lied, I've forgive me, but rather the Zohar sees it as, save me from Esav. The lying lipped one is Esav. Save me from Esav. Let me get through this and let me get the blessing before Esav comes back, because my getting the blessing is the truth. And Esav getting the blessing would be the fake news, would be false. So, okay. So this is his prayer. Come and see.
Come and see, Isaac told Esav. Go out to the field and hunt me sayed game with a hay, as they have established.
Right. So the word, one second, the word sayed, which means game, something hunted, is supposed to be spelled Tzadi Yud Daled, 3 letters. And in other places, we have it spelled that way. In the Torah, the way we have it here, we have what's called a kri and a ktiv, right? We have the way it's written, that's the ktiv, and then we have the kri, how we read it. So it's written Tzadi Yud Daled Hey. Now we could have read that as Seidah.
Seidah.
Right? Seidah is food for the journey. But that's not what it means here, and that's not actually how we read it. So if you look in a chumash, if you look in the Yetz Chaim or any other traditional chumash, you'll see a notation that says it's written Tzadi Yud Daled Hey, but it's read Tzayid as if there is no Hey. Right? So that's the or it could be tzeidah, her hunting, her game, right? You could say it that way. But anyway, the point is none of those are correct. It's tzayid, and the hay is superfluous. So what is that all about? So it was noticed in the Midrash, and now what do we say? Look at 269.
Go out to the field, sayed, game, with a hay. The word is spelled with an extra letter, hay, understood by Rabbi Elazar as alluding to Shekhinah, symbolized by the final letter of Yud Hey Vav Hey. She conveys blessing.
Right. So go and find me tzayid for God's sake, right? For the sake of God, right? Or find me tzayid that is blessed by God, right? Because that's what I want to then consume, so that I will give you blessing. Okay, so that's what Isaac really meant. Okay, so we're continuing. Esau went out.
Where am I?
We're on the second line of the last
Jacob
paragraph.
went out so that he would receive Isaac's blessing, for he said to him, I will bless you in the presence of Yud Hey Vav Hey. Now, if he had said, I will bless you and nothing more, that would have been fine. But as soon as he said, in the presence of Yud Hey Vav Hey, the throne of glory of the Blessed Holy One, trembled, saying, what if the serpent escapes his curses and Jacob is subjected to them? At that moment, Michael was summoned, and he appeared before Jacob, accompanied by Shekhinah. Isaac realized this, and seeing the Garden of Eden accompanying Jacob, blessed him in its presence. When Esau entered, hell entered with him. So Isaac trembled very violently, since he had thought that Esau was not of that side. He opened, saying, I blessed him. Now blessed he will remain.
Right. Okay. So now what we have again is back to this. This is somewhat of a review of what we had before, where in the Torah, the verse says, I lost it. Here it is. Right. So it says, Havia leitzayid, and this is where Rivka is repeating Isaac's words. Va'aseli matamim, so bring me game, make me a tasty dish, va'ochela, and I'll eat it. And va'avarechecha lifnei Hashem, lifnei moti, and I will bless you before the eternal, or in God's presence before I die. So the Zohar says, it says here, in the presence of God, before God. If he would have said, I'll bless you, fine. That would have been okay. We don't care about Isaac giving his son Esav a blessing. Sure, he loves Esav. Esav is his son. Every father should bless their child. But that's not the blessing we're talking about. We're talking about Lifnei Hashem. We're talking about the blessing that will be in God's presence. The blessing that is supposed to transfer the blessing that has been established starting with Abraham. That special blessing. So if that's the blessing that we're talking about, then the throne of glory trembled. And what did it say? Oh no, what is going to happen? So remember that we had this already mentioned in a slightly different way, that had Isaac actually completed the blessing with Esav, that would have been it. Then there would have been no hope for Israel, for Jacob, for Israel, for the people of Israel ever again. The blessing would have empowered Esav forever. So here the throne of glory speaks and shudders and says, oh my goodness, right? And this throne of glory is God, saying, what if the serpent escapes his curses and Jacob is subjected to them. The blessing will empower the Sitra Achra, and Jacob will be subdued. So what are we going to do? So we've talked about this, any number of times. This is the internal struggle within God, so to speak, that this moment, so much is at stake. And God, in a certain sense, is nervous, is trembling. Will everything work out the way it needs to work out? So again, Rivka is Shechina in a certain way, Shechina taking the bull by the horns and making sure that this doesn't happen, right? But it also, Rivka is Rivka. And had Rivka not done this, then all of world history would have been different, and we wouldn't have to study Zohar on Thursday nights. So that's the thing. So at that moment, Michael was summoned, and he appeared before Jacob accompanied by Shechina. So this is, rallying the troops, the reinforcements. And Shechina is ushered in with the archangel Michael and Michael, and they are coming in there. And as we had before, right, the fragrance of the Garden of Eden is refreshed because the Shekhinah is now back with its proper exemplar. Jacob has the garments, and Isaac understands this. This is where Isaac's eyes are sort of opened up, okay? And then we have the conclusion. It skips forward that when Esav comes in, if we read the verses, right? So this is verse 30, chapter 27. And right after the verses that we read before, the blessing. And as soon as Isaac finished blessing Jacob, it turned out that right as Jacob left from before Isaac, his father, his brother Esav came from his hunting. And he also made tasty dishes. And he brought them to his father, and he said to his father, my father should arise and eat from his son's hunting, so that your soul will bless me. And Isaac said to him, Isaac his father, who are you? And he said, I'm your firstborn son Esav. And this is now verse 33. Isaac trembled, a great trembling, very, very, so much. And he said, who then was the one who hunted the hunting? Hatzad Sayid. And he brought me from it. And I ate from all of what he gave me before you got here. And I blessed him, and he will be indeed blessed. So here's where Isaac confirms in a rhetorical way. He says, oh, so the person I blessed before wasn't you, obviously. And he says, no, but that's the way it should be. The blessing, I'm not taking away the blessing. The blessing was not obtained under false pretenses and therefore nullified, but the blessing stands. So what's the idea of him trembling very violently? So look at 272.
When Esav entered, hell entered with him, so Isaac trembled.
See Breshit Rabbah. Isaac trembled.
Isaac trembled violently, very violently. Rabbi Yochanan said, if a person has two sons and one comes in and one goes out, does he tremble? That would be astonishing. Rather, when Esav entered, hell entered with him.
Okay, so How do we explain this this midrash? What is this midrash trying to do? The midrash is trying to explain the source of the trembling. Why is Isaac trembling so fiercely? So one simple answer is because he realizes he made a terrible mistake. He realizes that he was fooled. He realizes that this very precious blessing has been stolen. So the problem with that answer is that it's unacceptable for the tradition. And it's unacceptable for the midrash. And the midrash has the end of the verse to back itself up. Look, Isaac doesn't take it away. Isaac confirms the blessing. So if he is at peace with the blessing being bestowed to Jacob, so what's all the trembling about? So this is Rabbi Yochanan's kind of facetious, statement. If we're just talking about people going in and out, it's like a Phaedo farce. There's nothing to tremble about. What's at stake here is nothing, because Isaac is fine with the blessing going to Jacob. So what's the big trembling about? So the answer is, says Rabbi Yochanan, he's not trembling because of the switch between one son and another coming in before him. He's trembling because he senses that hell, that the Sitra Achra is in the room. Yeah, Larry.
He was not fooled. Yitzchak was not fooled by Yaakov. He was fooled by Esau. He thought, he didn't see that Esau was really from the Sitra Achra, and that's what he was fooled by. That's who he was fooled by.
Yes. So that's the of course that's the ending. That's the whole switcheroo that we have in the Zohar and in the tradition itself. Esau has been misleading his father, and his father finally comes to realize that right before the blessing is given, when the clothes emit that fragrance from the Garden of Eden. Then he goes, aha, now I understand how come the fragrance never was there when Esau was around. And now it's here. So, it's needless to say, this is not the straightforward reading of the text, but it is the very skillful remaking of the text by the tradition and by the Zohar, in light of their reading of Jewish history.
But this raises the question that I typed in the chat.
I didn't see. I'm sorry.
All right.
This is I cannot walk and chew gum at the same time. That's the problem. So what is determining the correct sequence? The humans, the divine? Yes. All right. Good. The answer is yes.
But no. But again, you didn't read the last part. Which part of the divine?
Correct. I think that's all of that is correct. That's what I think that I've been trying to struggle, to say this in so many different kinds of ways. It is absolutely not straightforward and easy to plot out and make it all harmoniously coherent. I think that the Zohar zigs and zags and acknowledges and then pulls back, and acknowledges and then pulls back in the face of these kinds of really tough questions that you're asking, and that I think that it is acknowledging and asking also. There's the whole Sitra Achra paradigm establishes that question without any of the stories in the Torah, right? Once the Zohar acknowledges the reality of a Sitra Achra, as we have said so many times, as an essential part of creation, then that questions are simply will never go away, and it's struggling with the question the same way that God struggles with trying to overcome the serpent.
But what you just said now is really important, because no, seriously,
Okay.
because the struggle is within the deity itself.
Yeah.
So then you can't just expunge that aspect of the deity. And you can whistle from today till tomorrow about the Mashiach, but you're not going.
Can't whistle. I wish I could.
But you can't expunge that. You can't expunge the fact that Hashem is trembling at his own inability to be sure that he can control the evil side of himself.
Yes.
And that's scary, Rabbi.
That-
That's really scary.
That's a great trembling. That is the great trembling. That's the great trembling that Isaac is experiencing at that very moment. And it's Isaac that trembles, and Isaac is pachad, right? Isaac, and in a certain sense, Isaac, of course, is din. Isaac is gvura, right? All of the words that we have labeled for that aspect of the divinity, judgment, law, fear and trembling, might. Gvura is might, right? And yet it's all up for grabs, right? Isaac is the most vulnerable of the patriarchs, right? He's the one that his father almost slits his throat. So this is, in some ways, the Zohar didn't make it up. It's deeply rooted in,
Oh, Isaac.
I think, a real understanding of what's what. Yes. And nevertheless, and here's the next part, which I'm going to come to again and again and again. Nevertheless, the conviction is the raza de behemnuta, right? The mystery of faith.
Oh,
The mystery that it comes together, and that even though at any particular moment it's as shaky as can be, it's going to work. Now, why does it have to work? It has to work. I'm making this up. It has to work because it was initiated by a choice by God before, and this is the problem. I mean, I don't want to get into it, but before the duality happens, the choice to get into the risk is made by a risk-free original God. And therefore, God can shut the game off at any point, right? And that's maybe cold comfort for us. And that's part of what I'm trying in my snail's pace progress. I believe that that's part of this whole Shemitah problem. But I'm not going to go into it right now. But as an origin story, that's what allows all of this drama to be as scary and as real as it is. It's real because God chose to play it real. But God chose it that way. God chose to enter into this mess as a God. And I've said this again, otherwise, this is God's transformation of God from the perfect, all-enclosed, self-ideal, unproblematic totality of nothingness to turn into a creator God, who has a relationship with anything other, and the other implies or even demands evil.
So I mean, you probably said this. The pessimist optimist, right? You know that one, right?
No, go ahead.
The optimist says this is the best of all possible worlds, and the pessimist says this is the best of all possible worlds.
There you go. There you go. Right. Yes. Yes, Sandra.
So all right, let me gather my thoughts. So Isaac trembling in this way, I keep thinking, so he almost gave the blessing to the evil, to the dark side. What would have been the effect if he had blessed the dark side or the Sitra Achra? Is that the notion of almost resurrecting the snake, the serpent? Is it the destruction of the Jewish people? I don't know where to go with this because there's some more here and I can't quite put my hands on it.
So it's more than just, yes, there is more. It's not simply that the Jewish people would be in trouble for the rest of history. The Zohar said it as I understand it. The Zohar said it before. The Zohar here alludes to it again. What's at stake is whether God chooses to play this risky game and loses.
Oh.
That's the problem.
Oh.
Now,
wow.
So that's what what Mark is pointing out again and again. But to clarify, your question clarifies then the trembling.
Yeah.
The trembling is after we escaped that defeat, right? Isaac trembles after he has actually successfully given the blessing, not to the serpent, not to Esav, but to Jacob. Nevertheless, hell is right there in the room with him. Hell doesn't go away just because Jacob got the blessing.
Right.
That's not, we haven't gotten to the end of days, right? We're still actually very, very close to the beginning of all of this. So hell is still a contender. Hell is not knocked out cold forever. Good can be knocked out cold forever. That's part of the problem.
Yeah.
And I will just gently say, and that's part of our problem that we're facing at this very moment in our own time. So his trembling is actually after a victory. His trembling is that we dodged the bullet right now.
And the realization that we dodged the bullet.
And the realization that we dodged the bullet, and you get a little weak in the knees when that happens. But at the same time, we know that the game isn't over and the war isn't over.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. All right, let's see if we can do just a few more lines here. Therefore,
Jacob prepared himself cunningly, deceitfully, bringing blessings upon himself who resembled Adam. Blessings snatched from that serpent of lying lips, who told so many lies, perpetrated so many insidious acts to lead astray, inflicting curses upon the world. So Jacob came cunningly, deceiving his father in order to bring blessings, seizing from him what he had denied the world. This was measure for measure. Of him is written, he loved cursing, may it come upon him. He did not want blessing, may it be far from him. Of him is written, cursed are you among all animals and among all beasts of the field. He remained so for generations upon generations, while Jacob came and snatched blessings from him. Ever since the days of Adam, Jacob was destined to seize all these blessings from that serpent, leaving him immersed in curses, unable to escape.
okay, so this is a nice coda for tonight, and a kind of a summary of all of the things that we had from before, putting the most hopeful and positive statement forward, right? But also acknowledging that Jacob had to turn himself inside out, right? Jacob had to act like Esav in order to defeat Esav. And that, again, it's a pretty accurate description of the challenge that we see again and again in world history. If the good guys are gentle, the way they should be, they run the risk of being run over by the bad guys. And you know, the Baila Hakima Beremiza, you know, a hint to the wise is sufficient. You know, we see it play out, unfortunately, in our own experience as we speak. All right. Any other comments by anybody? All right, so I'm going to call it a night then. Yasher Koach, and now everybody's got it. We're on the Zoom thing here, so that's the deal. Okay.
Thank you.
I'm
Good
going to
night.
stop the recording.
Thank you.
I'm going to stop the recording.